Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Alison Pask, and it's a great pleasure to be hosting this webinar today with our guest, Harriet Harcourt. Harriet joins us from Perth, and I first met her when she owned her catering business in Wellington many, many years ago. She's now an award-winning food photographer, and it's an absolute delight to congratulate you, Harriet, on winning the Pink Lady Food Photographer of the Year 2021. What an amazing win. There were over 10,000 entries from 80 countries. So this is an incredibly big deal, and our sincere congratulations to you. Harriet, it's a great pleasure to welcome you today to share tips on taking photos of food. Welcome to you, and please take over from now.
Thank you. Yes, big excitement. Now, just a very pedantic, I won my category, which is still a really, really big deal. It was the
Absolutely.
The food portraiture category. It's a bit of a mouthful. But yes, very exciting. So anyway, as you've already said, I'm going to whiz through this reasonably quickly because I've put a lot down. But you will be able to download the whole thing later on and follow, and so you don't need to write down the notes that I've put on here because you'll be able to read them later. So I've started with this very pretty picture that I love, and of an absolutely amazing, delicious ginger cake with mandarin syrup. But now we're going to go and get real. So here we go. So this is a screen grab of a social media picture. It belongs to a grocery just down on the corner of my street here. And they claim that this is their signature dish. It's an apple pie. And I have to say, it is actually really good apple pie. But when I saw this photo, I thought, oh, this is just not a great way to sell your product. So I went and found one down in the shop and brought it home and decided to recreate it. It was a marketing exercise for me because, you know, I thought, well, this is a potential client for me. So when I looked at this, what I see is basically a bit of a mess. So we've got the pie in the front, which is out of focus and a bit kind of squished looking, a large amount of mint in the back, and a little bowl with some ice cream in, and some completely, in my opinion, pointless chocolate drops. And I feel like the dark board is sucking all the life out of it. And if you look around the bottom of the little bowl of ice cream, there's a very, very hard shadow. So I took that image, and by the way, I do have their permission to use it, which was an interesting conversation, and I recreated it to look like that. So what I did was obviously used very similar to setup to what they had done, but I've cut my piece of pie so that it's a lot cleaner looking and you can see a lot more of the filling. I have actually left crumbs and icing sugar and a bit of mess because that is, you know, that is part of what that would look like. I think that gives it some reality. And I've just put my ice cream in a shallower bowl so you can see more of it and you can see the texture of it. And I've kept with their garnish of the mint in the background, but I've reduced it right down and put it out of focus so that it's not, you know, it's not kind of hogging it's not a big green thing. And I've used all neutral props so that I've kind of tried to make it look like it is really all about the pie and telling the story of here's a lovely pie that I really would like to eat. And from the point of view of shooting it, it was, and you'll see in a minute, is it's window light to the left of the picture, and I've just bounced a little bit of that light back into the right hand side so that you don't have those very hard shadows. I'm going to say that a few times as we go through, and I am then going to show you what I mean. So that's what I did with their picture, and that's the comparison. So I've I feel like I've succeeded in my mission by bringing out the colour of the pie and making my eye now goes to that and thinks, oh, that looks yummy. Whereas it was going to this one and going, oh dear. So personally, I just don't think they did themselves any favours publishing that photo. And I suspect it was done in a hurry and they were excited because it's a delicious pie. But it's worth taking the time to think through, you know, putting a bit more time into how you present that. So this is the same product, obviously, which again, they've just held up in their shop and taken a picture of it. And I think, because if we're talking about, you know, they went, oh, this looks great, let's put it on our social media. And in that situation, you don't have a professional photographer on hand to shoot it quickly for you. So I don't have any problem at all about shooting it on your phone in the moment, because that's what we all do. But one of the things that they could have done is, if you look at the background, it's obviously in the shop and there's people walking around and there's clutter and other stuff. And one of the things they could have done quite easily is just held the pie in front of one of the staff who would be wearing either a chef's jacket or an apron, and probably something with their branding on. And that would have given more context and told a bit more again of the story of, we've just made this pie and, you know, here's the person who made it behind you. And so I took that and I simplified. I've kept everything very simple. Back to my neutral props. I've decided to shoot it from above because you can see the nice lattice and you can see the texture of the apple and the colour, and a bit of crumpled baking paper for a bit of texture. And again, in this picture, I'm pointing at my screen in case you can't tell. The light is at the top of the frame. That's the window light again. And I'm obviously shooting from above. And I thought, oh, it looks kind of it looked nice, but not as interesting as just cutting a wedge out and pulling it back. So again, you've got a bit of shape and interest to it. And these little ones along the bottom, they were just sort of a little cameo of, there's the pie, which is nice, and then I've added my blob of ice cream, and then I've gone, okay, now I'll pop some mint in, and just another view of the one we saw from the front earlier. So that's the before and after again, just to refresh your memory. It's a very simple photo, but I think it's, you know, much more appetizing looking to me anyway. And it was a great pie. I'm really fussy about pastry, and it was a really delicious pie. So this is the behind the scenes of shooting that little setup. You might not be able to see very well until you get closer and look at it on the PDF, but you can see on my tabletop I've got the plate with the pie on it and the mint. Ice cream hasn't made it there yet. I've got light coming in from the window, and you can see that there's shadows from the blinds, and also this crosshatch stuff is shadows from the top of the fence behind it. So my diffuser, if you look at all the stuff going on the diffuser and then you look at the plate, it's got nice even light on it. So that's the job that's doing. And then down, if you follow this bottom orange arrow, there's some daggy old tea towels and things, because we were being real here. There's a piece of, I'll show you now, I was going to show you later. It's actually this. It's just white foam board that I've stuck together with gaffer tape and made a little V-flat thing, so that sits on your surface, and that's what I was using on the right of that plate of food to just bounce some of the light back in. I'm going to keep going. So the next thing I did was, they had these, I feel like I was picking on these people down the road, but their products are lovely. A take-home meal. And so I wanted to show them again how you could just improve the look of that for something like their you know, a product shot for their website, or again, just to put on their social media. And when I took the lid off, I thought, okay, so there's a little bit going on here. Everything looks a bit dry, and the lime piece was really washed out and you know, looking very tired. So I just, normally when I'm food styling for something like this, I wouldn't go as far as I did, because I took everything out, took the whole lot out and took it completely to bits, which was quite time consuming and not really necessary, but I was doing it to show you the process. So took everything out, had a bit of a look. Here's what I had to work with. And so we've got noodles and we've got carrots and silver beet and all the bits and pieces. So if I was doing this for a real job, then I wouldn't, you've got to maintain that integrity in terms of people who's buying what they see. But if it was going to be a photo for publication somewhere, then I don't have a problem with putting fresh garnishes and things on, because that's what you need to do. It's when you start stuffing the pie with pretty much the contents of another pie that you're getting into the realms of tricking. So there it is, reassembled. I've basically put all the noodles and everything back in without too many ends showing, because they often look quite weird in a photo. And so I've kind of made little drapey bits and what have you, and then I've tried to show there's a bit of carrot in the side there and a bit of red pepper and little foldy bits of silver beet. And then I have put a fresh line of the fried shallots and some freshly cut spring onions and chilies, and a new piece of lime, which I think looks a bit less dehydrated and tired. And so all I've done with that is got a little brush and some oil and dabbed little bits of oil, like on the front here, there's a wee bit of, I think it's onion and the silver beet, and I've just dabbed little bits of oil to give it a bit of shine, so that helps pick up the light and gives the photograph some more little highlights. And so there we are, back to when I took the lid off and when I had zhuzhed it up a bit. So normally I wouldn't have necessarily taken the whole thing to bits, but I would have maybe just cleaned up the top. But as I say, I wanted to show you the sort of the full process. So the next thing I'm going to do is just walk through a whole setting up a shoot, and I've used really basic food. I'm going to do sausages, peas, mash and gravy, and just walk you through the process, because it's, for me anyway, I find it quite, I don't really have as much of a challenge with the food, because that food's been my thing for years, but it's the getting the setup for me is quite a long process sometimes, because I have this idea in my head and then I can't get it to work in my setup. So it's just a bit of a process of trying stuff and going and seeing how you go until you find what you think's working. I've missed out a whole thing. Sausages and mash in a minute. So this was a third one that I did, same sort of thing. Thai beef salad, took the lid off. It's again just looking flat and tired, and this little squiggly thing on the top of the sauce container is the only indication you can see that there's noodles in there. So I did the same thing as with the Hokkien noodles, just took everything out, freshened it all up, and this time I decided I'm going to put it in a real plate and a little bowl for the sauce. And so that is halfway through the process. Now that is literally, I haven't added a single new herb or piece of carrot. I freshened up what was in that bowl, just gave it a wee soak in water, let it rehydrate, and then spin in a salad spinner, and then just sort of plopped it back in and fluffed it up so that it had a bit more life to it. And the meat, I washed it in water to get all the crumbs of those shallots off, and sort of make it look fresh and moist again. And you can see I've teased out all the noodles around here so that you definitely know there are noodles. And so again, the only thing I did was I cut fresh red onion because it just give it a pop of colour. And then I wanted to use some of the sauce to actually give some shine and glisten to the dish and finish it off. So I've used what I put in the bowl, and I thought, oh, that's just a nice little action shot. That would be a lovely photo to put on your social, Facebook or Instagram or what have you. Here we are just finishing off our beef salad. And that's the finished article. The only thing I would do if this had been an actual paid job was I would have topped up the little sauce bowl, or I would have swapped it for a smaller one. But because it's obvious I've taken sauce out to pour over the beef, and that would be the only bit of cheating I would do, if you like. I would just put extra sauce in there to make it look a bit more full. And I think for the purposes of this presentation, it's quite good to not have everything perfect. So there's the before and after again. So all I've done is, as I say, I've cleaned up this meat. So to me, it looks a bit more moist, and I've just folded it a bit nicely and taken all this is sort of this massive dump of crumbs on here, which just for the presentation, I think it looks much better. I've just put a little line through. It's sort of joining up the salad with the beef, and it's not smothering everything with crumbs. So now we're going to do the sausages and mash. Excuse me. So this is where it all starts for me. I go, oh, I'm going to do this picture and I'm going to put it on this surface, and I really want to use this because I just bought it and I think it's cool. And then we get real. So I pulled out a few things I thought might go in my picture, and I've prepared my food. So this is all ready to be photographed, but we're about an hour away from actually taking this photo. So put it all in and then start taking it all out. So I've got here this green napkin looks great in some photos, but I just thought it was way too dark, and the cutlery, same thing. So they immediately, and this little bit of food here is just for me to have the suggestion of what the food colour is going to be. Here's my lovely napkin that I was hopeful would work, and it doesn't really. So I kept going, nope, didn't like that, thought that was pretty awful. A dark glass of water wasn't working out for me. And again, here I am going neutral, 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 because my sausages and peas and everything in the end are what this photo is going to be all about. So now I'm getting a bit happier with it because I'm liking more this look, and this is a lovely jug, but I don't think it's going to work for me today. And I then sort of suddenly randomly changed the plate and thought, oh, I like that better. So you can see I'm just heading straight back down the path in this instance to keeping it really neutral. So still working away on, does this work, does that work? Now I've put the salt in something else. The white jug's not going to work. And now I've found the bones of my photograph. So I decided that the carrots, I'd originally thought that they would be on the plate with everything else. And while I was going through this process, sort of mentally everything's clunking over in the background, I'm thinking the carrots, how am I going to get the carrots on the plate? I don't think they're going to work. I'll just make them a prop for this, because this is still part of the story, is you've got your meal on your plate and there's a dish of carrots that you can help yourself from. So I'm happy with this idea. And I'm happy with my gravy jug. So then I decided I needed to fiddle with the layout a bit more, and which I did. And by the time I'd finished this photo, I decided I preferred the original layout, but it's too late now. So I'm just about there. And the thing is, I want to know that I'm happy with all of this, because once I get the food actually on the plate and the gravy and everything, it's much harder to go back. So I've just tweaked a bit again, and I'm happy enough that I've now put some food in there and started tweaking the food. But these sausages, I didn't, because I'm shooting them from above, I thought, oh, I really don't like how they look. And it's just a tiny bit of potato here that needs to get moved. But overall, I'm sort of feeling like I'm ready to, I'm nearly there. So all I've done is, I've put my sausages now lying down. And, normally, and when we're having a meal like this at home, I mean, my mother always did it, was the meat here, the vegetables all around. You didn't kind of mix them up like this, but I think this is a slightly more modern way of presenting stuff. So now I'm feeling like I'm ready to start adding the mess. And I've remembered to put gravy in my jug. And I'm pretty much ready to go now, except the sausages, when you look at them, they look very dull and fatty. So they need sorting out before I start doing anything else. And now they look hot again. And all I've done is, I didn't heat them up because it's much easier to shoot the food when it's not hot. I've just brushed a wee bit of oil over them. So I haven't done anything that makes them inedible. And now I'm going to go in with my gravy, which that's nice, not too much wrong with that. But I feel like I want to add a bit more peas now to sort of join the whole thing up. So there we go, there's my little extra peas. And that's not bad, I quite like that. So I can go, at this point I can go, well, I've got this shot, so now I'll do some more adding of stuff, and if it all goes pear-shaped, not to worry, I've got my basic shot. So I've added a wee bit more gravy, and then I just drizzled a line of it down on this sort of other, towards the two tomatoes. I don't know, am I going at a decent pace for this? You're getting the move, yeah. So you can see the movement. In fact, that's quite cool fun. So now I'm going, yep, it's nearly too much gravy, but everything's all joined up nicely. So that makes me feel happy. And now I've added some pepper. And again, the photograph before, when I've gone, oh yeah, the gravy, just make sure at that point that I'm happy with that photograph, because once I've added the pepper, if it can tend to look a bit like dirt, and you can't pick all those specks off. If you decide, oh, I've mucked it up at this point, you're going to have to clean off your plate and start from scratch, and that's never that much fun. So then I've just done these tiny little tweaks. You can see I've just moved that little bit of rosemary, and I thought, yeah, I'm happy with that. Oops, and that's my finished result. So I mean, obviously, if you look from here to here, I've done a little bit of post-production on this now, and I've added a bit of intensity to the colours, and I've also cleaned up my board a bit. But that's kind of a whole different topic, the editing part. I did two things when I got to this point. I went, yay, I've got my photo, and immediately started of all the things I'd do differently. So at some point you just have to go, that's enough. Pour me the wine, I'm done here. So, but a thing that I deliberately left in is this crack in my board. I do leave that in photos sometimes, but actually in this photograph, I don't think it's a good thing, and I've left it there on purpose to say, watch out for stuff like that, because if I was doing this for a photograph that needed publishing, I was passing on to a client, I would have either changed the surface completely or just poured everything down so that that line wasn't cutting through the bits that it's cutting through. You could edit it out, but it's a lot of work, and that's not, I don't think that this audience is kind of looking to get that complicated. I'm trying to give you lots of information because I suspect that you're all in different places with photography. So if you're picking up at least 1 or 2 points, then I'll be very happy. So, and again, this took me about an hour and a half to do on my own. It's really frustrating when you look at other people's photographs and think they're so beautiful and she makes it look so easy, or, you know, how do they do that? And the truth is it's actually hard to do it by yourself. So don't be fooled. It's quite hard, for me anyway. And I have read other people. There's somebody I follow in the States who's quite a similar story. She's self-taught and she's does these amazing photography classes, and she's just put a book out. And she said if she's working on her own, she can only do 2 or 3 a day. And I'm thinking, oh, phew, because that's, you know, I thought, oh, it's just me. Anyway, we better move on. So, and yes, we did eat that sausage and mash dinner. So I'm going to get a little bit behind the scenes in terms of some things that you can use to help your photography. Clearly, a camera is a great idea, and the best camera is the one you have on hand at the time. So I'm guessing a lot of you are using phones, and the phones are so good now that there's nothing wrong with taking a picture on your phone and publishing it. One of the first pictures I sold was taken on my old mobile phone. So I think my recommendation is, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on actual camera gear, is work with what you've got and find out everything it does and practice with it. And then if you get interested enough in it and you feel like you've reached the limits of what your camera or phone camera will do for you, then that's the time to investigate maybe taking the next step. But I found too that I had a little camera when we came to WA that I didn't really know how to use, and I went out and took millions of pictures of bees and flowers, and got to the point where I thought, I'm so frustrated because I know this camera can do more than I understand. And my solution at that time was to go and buy a better camera, which I did. I still didn't know how to use it, and figured out in the end, what do I need to learn? And then I went to have lessons, because I knew that there were things that people could do that I couldn't do, and I just didn't know how. So it really is just about understanding how to make the most out of the piece of equipment you've got. Here's a little example of, so my piece of very highly technical cardboard. This is an example of the effect that a reflector will have. So on the left-hand side, we've got Anzac biscuits and some milk, and the left-hand side is the lights coming from my living room window, but the sun is high enough up that the sun's not directly in the room, so I'm effectively working in open shade, and got my little pile of biscuits, my milk and everything, but you can see it's just a wee bit dark. So all I've done is taken a reflector, which you'll see in a moment, and put it to the right-hand side of the photograph. So that's now helping to bounce light back in from the light that's coming in from the window. Excuse me. And you can see what a big difference it's made. If you look at the milk bottles, they've got quite a lot of shadow on them, and it's virtually gone. And I have shot, those two photos are identical in terms of everything, the setup, the camera settings, the editing afterwards, which was minimal. The only difference is one's got a reflector in and one hasn't. And here's, oh, I nearly pushed the wrong button. Here's my setup. You can see how sophisticated it is. So I've got my biscuits and milk on the surface, and then I've got a bit of what do you call that, pressed tin that is badly in need of painting again. And my reflector is the lid of a polystyrene box with an A-clamp from Bunnings holding it in place. And yes, it does raise eyebrows everywhere I go when I'm shooting a job. And but other photographers go, oh yeah, I do that too. So again, you just need something. I mean, I could have been using the cardboard one, but it's just something that will bounce the light back in and that won't fall on your biscuits. So bottom left is just I've pulled out a bit more to show you the sort of behind the scenes setup. So I'm shooting this on my camera. You can see where the window is. If you look on the floor, you can see the sun is now coming in, but it's not affecting my setup yet. And that's just to show you, I'm shooting with my camera tethered to the laptop. I'm not going fast enough because we're getting to be short of time. So I think that's enough about that. You can see the sun's coming in here, and this is the effect that that's had. So this is a nice photo. I quite like this variegated light. So that's got the shadows, because I don't have a diffuser yet, that's the shadows are coming in and making this kind of interesting looking. So I don't think there's anything terribly wrong with that. But this is what it looks like now that I've put a diffuser in the window, and it's evened out that light again. It's a similar thing to what the reflector did in the other shot. These are some of the ways you can make a reflector. This is a 5-in-1 collapsible unit. You've seen those things that are really hard to twist. So it's got silver, gold and white. So that's for bouncing light in. The black is actually to do the opposite. The black sucks the light up. And we've got here various ways, things that you can make. This was just a little piece of, had a little cake on it. And I thought, oh, that'll be handy one day, because you could just put that on a clamp if you just wanted to bounce a tiny bit of light into some part of your photo. And then these are the diffusers. So this is literally, that came from my mother's old house in Wellington. It's just an old net curtain. So just be creative in how you find these things. This is proper diffusion paper that it comes on a big roll, but you can see this baking paper does a good job too. And this is my lovely man demonstrating the sun coming through the diffuser. And a little baby food styling kit. These are the 3 things I never leave home without. So we've got tweezers, a brush and a little spritzer bottle, just for spritzing water. If you can see in this little photo, the broccoli was looking a wee bit dry, so she just spritzed a bit of water on it. Same with the pomegranate and your herbs, because you don't want to be painting them with oil. So water, a brush that you can use to brush oil, brush crumbs off. I've got, a raft of those sort of things. And then tweezers of some sort. These are quite fancy. Everyone envies me those tweezers, but they are really, really good for picking bits and pieces out of your photo that are much finer than your fingers. And just quickly, this is my last one. I've just given you some examples of how you can use what's around you as props and surfaces, so you don't have to have a big collection, and these all really tell part of the story. This top left, she literally had just pulled those onions out of her garden, and what she's wearing in her slightly dirty hands are the perfect backdrop for that story. Bottom left, this was completely just good luck that we were shooting in this alleyway with this graffitied fence in the background, which was just the most perfect backdrop for the fruit salad. And the cake, it's the same lady that grew the onions. This was a Mother's Day cake, and she said, I'll put my flowery shirt on. So we used her body and her clothes to sort of mirror the beautiful flowery cake. So she's just got a floral shirt on and little flowers on her belt. So it's just thinking creatively about some of those things, just looking around and seeing, using what's around you. And that is that.
Fabulous. What a wonderful presentation, Harriet. That's inspired me. Just those photos are just beautiful, and it's no wonder that you've won an award for your photography. Just very, very creative and innovative. And who would have thought of having a flowery shirt as a backdrop for a photo? Really, really inspiring. Thank you for putting the preparation into preparing today's presentation. If you have any questions, please write those in the question and answer box. I'm sure some of you have got questions for Harriet.
As I said, I feel like I kind of galloped through that, but my sense of time will be different from yours. But you can download this as a PDF and read through my notes. And if anyone's got questions after today, I'm happy to answer them later.
Thank you. What angle do you find best for taking photos of food? I know today you've described almost all different types of angles. What is the most common one for you?
That's an interesting question, because I used to, when I started off, I was always looking at the front of the food, or, you know, like a 45-degree, but almost always from the front and almost never from above. And then it became a real sort of trend to have that flat lay shoot from above look. And I noticed the other day, I thought, I'm almost automatically doing that now. But again, it really is going to depend on what, I mean, obviously shooting a burger from above isn't a great idea. So again, it depends on what kind of, what is the food and which angle is it going to look best from. So in some shots, like say the sausages and mash, you could shoot that from the side as well quite happily, I think, or 45 degrees. And obviously, so I've still got on the screen the top right corner with Tom with his salads. That to me is the only really sort of obvious angle for a photograph like that. So it really varies, but I have noticed I've sort of jumped on the bird's eye view bandwagon a lot lately.
That's interesting. And what about the colour of plates? I noticed that a lot of photos nowadays are very neutral coloured plates, and there was a phase there when there was this sort of duck egg type blue plate. Is it just a trend, or is there a preferred coloured plate?
Well, see, I was very, very rigid about, it's always got to be on white. And for a long time, I couldn't get my head around putting food on a coloured plate. And I'm well and truly past that now. But I think the current thing for lots of, again, fairly neutral, earthy, you know, the ceramic look, which I think does, you know, most food does look nice on. It's a little bit more natural looking than a starkly white plate. I have got plates here that I bought because I thought they were cool, and now I look at them and I think, what on earth kind of food will I ever put on this? So sometimes things can seem like a good idea, and then it's like, well, yeah, okay, but not really. So I
guess you want the focus to be on the food as opposed to the plate.
Right. Yeah.
What about for those of us that take photos for Instagram, and it's a photo in the evening, and we're wanting to put it straight up, we don't have much time, we're at a restaurant, out comes the camera, and there goes the photo of the meal that we're about to have. Any tips on taking photos when we just haven't got this set up and we haven't got the daylight right and the diffusers there?
Yes, it's a bit of a tricky one, because you often see pictures of food that's obviously been taken in a restaurant at night and it's very dark and it doesn't really do the food any favours. So I think try and find somewhere that's bright enough. I mean, you can't really walk around the restaurant with your plate looking for it, but I think the other thing that springs to mind is we've all got some kind of little editing program on our phones now. So I would suggest getting familiar with that, because, you know, you can lift the exposure and some of those and the colour and things in your editing, and you can do that if you just again practice and use it a lot. You can get quite adept at doing that quickly. And you can also, I think, develop your own style for that. I don't know if that's particularly helpful, but I think sometimes I just think, well, unless you absolutely have to take the photo because you have to put it somewhere, then maybe just don't do it. It's probably not the right answer, but you know, I look at some of the photos I take on my phone, I think, I don't know what I was thinking, but that is getting deleted now because the world just does not need to see this picture.
I guess it's all about the image you're trying to portray on whatever platform you're using, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Harriet, can you tell us the photo that you won the award with? Was that the pears with the syrup dripping down? How long did it take to prepare that photo?
That's a good question. I'd say I was playing around for an hour or two, because I started off with them in a bigger shot where they were still arranged in the dish and everything, but I had props and things in the background and I was shooting them from further back. And then I thought, oh, it's a pretty photo, but I think it would be nice if it had, because I was brushing a bit of syrup on them to make them shine, but I just thought, oh, I think it would look nice if the syrup was actually being poured. So I basically got much closer in, just left all the, just left all the background out. And then I was shooting it tethered to my laptop. So I'm trying to push the button on my laptop with my left hand and pouring the syrup with my right hand. You can imagine that actually not all the photos worked out quite as well as that one. And at one point I was thinking, if you keep doing this, the syrup is going to spill out of the dish and onto the table and onto carpet, and that's not going to be a good plan. So I'd say I was, with a shot like that, there's usually lots that you deleted that the world, again, never gets to see. I'd say it was at least an hour or two.
Fantastic. And is there a way that you view the photo, that people see photos? Is there like the rule of thirds, or do they start in the left hand corner and does their eye track? Is there a secret to how people look at a photo?
Yeah, there is that rule of thirds, which please don't ask me to explain that in a mathematical way, but I think that we are, with photographs, we're generally drawn to look at things in a particular way, and there's one thing it's called a leading line, and if in the frame, if I'm going from bottom left to top right, if you've got that's called if there's something sort of going through the photograph like that, that's called a leading line, and it does draw your eye through the image. You don't necessarily want everything bang smack in the middle.
So the example with the red onions that you've got there on screen now, the line being from the green leaf through to the onion to the roots, that takes you through, is that?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I'm kind of seeing yes, and this is bang smack in the middle, so I've just contradicted myself. But I think it's, yeah, that one for me, I've got her to hold the onions away from her body, so they're closer to me than everything else. So they're kind of pronounced and saying, here we are, we're the hero. And everything's kind of fading back. So yeah, I'm just trying to, it's not an example I would have used for a leading line, but there is actually one there, because if you look at that stringy root, it is actually drawing you up.
It's fascinating, because I think what I'm taking away from today's session, one of the key messages is just to get out there, be familiar with your equipment and give it a go. Trial, be creative, hold things in different ways, try different backgrounds. Don't forget the spritz of oil and water, because they seem to give things a beautiful gloss as well. Is there a closing tip that you would like to give us today, Harriet?
Well, I think you've said it. I think it's a classic example of just get out there and do it some more and keep doing it. If you knew how many times I had cried and said, I can't do it, it's too hard, I don't understand, I don't know what I'm doing, and then had another go. And I have deleted thousands of photos over the years that you know, you need to expect to take some really bad ones, But it's that classic thing of don't wait till the perfect moment arrives. You've got to be ready for that moment. And that how you get ready is the thing that and this was actually well before I got into food photography, I kept seeing things about wandering around and I'd think, oh, that'd make a lovely photo. I should go home and get my camera and come back. And I finally twigged that carry the camera always. And I literally walked around for a year or two holding a camera. So that, because I didn't have an iPhone at that point. Literally at the moment that I went, oh, that'll make a great photo, I could take the photo. And it either was a great photo or it wasn't, but I couldn't take it if I didn't have a camera with me. And again, you know, like that whole just, I sort of learned backwards, I think. I try stuff and then understand what I need to learn and then go and fill in the gaps, if you like.
All that experimenting, giving it a go is so important. And what there are so many lessons today, but I think the biggest lesson is that a photo speaks 1,000 words, doesn't it? And it tells a wonderful story. And what a delight to hear your stories today and the information behind taking award-winning photographs. Harriet, it's been a great pleasure to host you at today's webinar. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to the people that have joined us on the webinar. Ka kite anō.
Thanks for having me. Okay.